Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to start working on the brakes. Didn't quite get to it last time, but I'm pretty excited about them. We already pulled the center console out and got all this loose. So this is kind of just hanging out here. So I'm going to make a new bracket to hold these two in the same position. I just think that's going to work best. I think in my next setup, I will put them, I'll kind of reorganize this a little bit, but I think for this rig, without having to redo the whole dash, this is just going to be the best spot. So that's what we're going to do. I'm excited for it. It's going to be pretty cool to be able to play around with that, especially locking a front tire and be able to rear burn. It'll be fun to learn. So let's get to it. All right, so I took some measurements. This is going to be the width between the tube for my center console bars, and then this will be obviously the mounts for the brakes, and then I'll bend on these lines, see if it works. Alright, so if all the measurements are correct, it should just drop right in here, and then we can slide it around to where we need it. So with the old setup, that should be a pretty good location. With the new setup, it might change because these have to go forward throw as well. This one was just backwards. So I'm gonna mount these real quick and see what we're working with. Alright, so it's going to take some little bit of figuring out. I like this because I can pull it backwards pretty easily, and it goes forward full range, but if I have this casing high, it's going to be tight. I think it'll work. Shouldn't really be doing cuts and digs for the front brakes in high, so it should be okay. So I think this is where it's going to end up at. Alright, so I like this location. I'm going to pull the seat out just to make it easier. Plus I got to run all the lines and everything. But yeah, I like this location. So going to get the tubes cleaned up, get everything welded out, and then we'll, or at least maybe just tack it in, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so the way this was all run before with this brake was the rear off of the master cylinder was running to this junction here, And what that allowed me to do is run it over here and back into the rear brakes. And if I had an issue, I could just hook up the rear brakes and bypass all that. With this setup, I'm not going to do that because it would require a whole bunch more junctions due to the fact that it's going to go to each corner. The only part that's going to be a little bit weird is instead of running front and rear, it's going to be left and right. So we'll have to run one to the left side, one to the right side, and then I will probably end up deleting, actually I will end up deleting my proportion valve here. So we're gonna have to run entirely new brake lines through the whole build, which is a ton of work, but it looks good if you do it clean. I don't have anything to do like AN lines or anything like that, so I'm going to use all hard line, which is a lot more work, but let's get after it. All right, gonna start removing this one. Got all the zip ties off completely, and then start removing the brake lines. All right, so the rear brake line has a flexible here as well as here, and this one goes to a T on the axle right here. So we should be able to reuse these hard lines, but delete the T, and that way we can run, we don't have to change the brake line on the axle itself. We just got to run the two flexibles up the link to the cylinders. Alright, we got both brake lines removed from the axle side. They're draining right now, so we're going to get that T off, and then we're going to work our way up to the master cylinder and get all of it off so we can make new. Alright, we got the whole brake system out. This was the old setup, so there was two flexes to the front, to a T, and then this is the rear, so it came from the master to a proportioning valve, and then back to this junction here, and then into the brake handle, and then this one came out of the brake handle. If need be, I could have just hooked this line back up here to bypass that. Probably never needed necessary, but that's how I did it. So obviously this brake won't be being used. We have the two new ones, and then I won't be using the proportion valve either. So we got a lot of brake lines to make. Let's get to work. So pretty much my plan is to run here straight down the frame, and then across this rear bar here that was the rear C-mounts, and then up into it, and then from there we'll run them out. Alright, so we got this brake line routed. That's to the center of the left side. That is going to work the front left and rear left. So we got to obviously route two more lines off of that one, but I want to get the other main one done. So let's work on that next. Kind of a process to bend these up. It's obviously similar as any other tubing, but you got to sit there and snake it in between all of this stuff to make it how you want, which is kind of a process. But let's get the second one done real quick, and then we'll start working on each corner. So I got the first couple bends in close to how I want it. I'll have to straighten them out, pull them out, straighten them out a little bit. But from here to the back, I pretty much have one little bend and then 2 90s there, and then it comes in. So to do that, I'm just gonna have to fish it all through, mark my measurement, bend them, and then snake it back in and try to fit the final bit to the sticks. Alright, so I got it matching all the way along, right through here, both together, and then up and over, so now we just gotta fit the center. Alright, got both the ones for the rear ran. Not sure if I like how this is turning out, but not really a whole lot of other options with these current fittings and lines. Trying to make a match, but it's just hard because they're so obviously spaced up and different. But I'm gonna run the front real quick. Instead of running back here along this tube, I'm gonna run them forwards and then down underneath this one, and then my upper link's right here, so I can go right onto the upper link there. Alright, I got all the brake lines routed from the levers to where the links are at, and so now I'm going to have to do some flexible ends and then run down the links to the axles. So for the front, it runs like this, left, right, make a mount right here somewhere, and then it'll drop to that link. And the rear, run along the bottom of this one, over to this side, and then I already have some flexis set up here, so I just gotta run down a link, 2 more flexibles to these hard lines. All right, so that's the general idea of what it's gonna look like, but still gotta clean it up and mount those lines there. But we gotta do the front first, and then once it's all done, I'll clean it all up. But once the brakes are bled and we don't have leaks, sucks to secure everything and then have leaks and have to undo it all. Alright, so we got everything bled, and as of right now, it stops each corner perfectly. We'll know more when we get it on the ground if there's any air left in the system, but it feels pretty solid right now. So if I start it up, and then I have the air lockers off, so if I put it in gear, it'll spin the front right, push this handle forward, stops it. Now the front left, now the front left stop. Same thing here, third, pull it, stops that one, and same thing here. Alright, so everything's bled, everything's working. The brake lines are all just zip tied for now. I still need to make a couple mounts for them, but this is what it's looking like. It's pretty much what it's going to look like. Just a little bit cleaned up. The reason we're not fully doing it yet is because we gotta move or swap out the transfer case and do all of that, and so if anything needs to change, I don't want to have to redo all the mounts. All right, with all the brake handles in, all the new brake lines run, each corner working, that pretty much wraps this up for now. We're going to go to the transfer case stuff next, which might include doing a little bit more work, but pretty excited to try these out and see how they do. Thanks for watching.